Nigeria, and I came to the United Kingdom, much like many people I know, to seek for greener pastures and betterment of life. And I grew up with effectively a single mom because my dad died when I was very young, and things were very rough. So I grew up knowing that you have to rely on God and then get on with things. And when I got to the United Kingdom, one thing became very clear, that I needed to prepare myself for the kind of blessing that I wanted from God. It also became very clear to me that with a degree from Nigeria, it was unlikely, not improbable, but highly unlikely that I was going to get the kind of job that I really wanted. So I enrolled on a postgraduate program. And in between, I did all sorts of things, from washing dishes in the kitchens to sorting letters in post offices and fast food restaurants. Perhaps the most challenging and the most tasking job I've ever done till date was cleaning toilets at Liverpool Street's Underground station in London. Now, there's nothing glamorous about cleaning other people's poo. I don't mean to be graphic, but that was very tasking. But it didn't bother me because I knew it was a means to an end. So I had to remain focused. And then I completed my postgraduate program, and as we were led to believe in school, with the raft of employers coming in, we're going to get jobs very quickly. And I gave myself 2, maybe maximum 3 months, I was going to get a job. And 6 months later, I was still looking for a job, broke, and unable to even know what I was doing anymore. And I decided to do one thing, which was to start keeping a record of my rejection letters. I called them my regret letters because they had a theme, all of them. The first paragraph thanked me for attending the interview. The second paragraph always regretted that they were not going to offer me a job. And the third paragraph wished me luck and said they were going to keep my record on file, as if they were ever going to contact me. So I learned to go straight to the second paragraph. Dear Mr. Thomas, after we regret to inform you, whilst we found your skills impressive, we regret to inform you. And the reason I kept those letters was that I wanted to remind myself when I eventually got the right job, where I came from. I wanted to remind myself that I started little. And one day, we regret to change to we are pleased to inform you. So I got a job. And when I started the job, multinational company, I was like a man possessed. Because what was driving me was very different from what was driving other people. I took my job seriously. And I have applied that to everything I did since then. I take nothing for granted. I do not take this occasion for granted. The privilege to be able to address this gathering is not taken for granted by me. It is highly appreciated by me. And I started that job, and a couple of years later, I was headhunted into another company in the city of London, and nothing could go wrong, so I thought. But 6 months into that job, I was on the list of redundancy within a month. And it didn't make sense to me. In fact, when I look back, I think that was the point I stopped trying to make sense of God. I just let God be God and I let me be me, because it didn't make any sense. The question was, why would God, who had elevated, after all I thought I'd been through, would get me to a point where my friends had celebrated me, and then all of a sudden, within a month, I was going to be out of a job. So I didn't know, I prayed like I've never prayed before. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. But I couldn't tell anybody what was going on. So, one thing God has blessed me with is just to keep going. So I threw my CV out again. And then one day, I got a telephone call to come and have a chat. And I had the chat, and they said, well, we're going to give you a job doing what you're doing. However, you will be a contract staff. You have to set up your own company. And years later, it became very clear to me that was the point that God gave me a jolt to say your apprenticeship was over, you needed to go do your own thing. So as we start something small, it is important that we are discerning enough to know when God is speaking to us. And lo and behold, I started that job and I met a gentleman with whom we founded our company that is today, by the grace of God, a success story in Nigeria many, many years later. When that happened, I went to my pastor then, Pastor Ashimolo, and I was very excited. I shared my testimony. And he gave me a word. 1 Corinthians 2:9. Ears have not heard, eyes have not seen, nor has it entered the hearts of man what God has prepared for those who love it. Which means even God prepares for those who love it. And I've heard it before, but it was at that point that it became clear to me that you can make a message, a passage in the Bible your own. You can claim it, you can believe it, and you can go on to fulfill it. And that's precisely what I got. And he said to me, he said, you need to keep your head down. Why? So that when bigger things happen, you can handle it. And that's the word that I took. Thank you. We get it there. So, in making sense of that, next slide. All right, I'll carry on when you're ready. Let me know. In making sense of that, it became clear to me that everything we do has a purpose. This gathering has a purpose. This church has a purpose. And a gentleman by the name of Franz Fanon, a black psychiatrist, who died in 1961, he was 36, and he said that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover, fulfill, or betray its purpose. Which means that in any situation that we didn't find the purpose does not mean it didn't exist. We either discover the purpose, fulfill it, or betray it. And when you start small, it is important to identify the purpose. It is my prayer for this church that this church will not only discover its mission and its purpose, but will go on to fulfill it in the name of Jesus. That when you come to celebrate your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 10th anniversary, greater things would have happened in this church in the name of Jesus. And so my purpose here is very clear today. Are you ready? Right, go ahead. Okay. So pardon the start of my presentation is very much a corporate type thing, which is what I do. And this shows a little image of somebody who's asking his dad, why are we here? Why are we on earth? Dad scratches his head. He couldn't quite give an answer because he wasn't quite sure why we're on earth. Your purpose on earth is different from mine because God programmed all of us differently to fulfill a particular purpose. But a lot of people, I feel, Technology is great when it works. All right. Okay. You good? No, that's wonderful. Just the definition of purpose, and then if it doesn't work again, I'm just going to list through this without the slides. Praise God. Okay. As I was saying, a lot of us have settled into a regular type of lifestyle without really stopping to understand why we're doing what we do. So this gathering, I said, why are we here? Is it something to do on a Sunday morning? Is it a chore? Are we here out of boredom? Or are we clear of the significance of the first anniversary of this church? Because the church has a purpose, and I believe, as I said, I'm not a pastor, but it is my belief that the church is going somewhere. Amen. In the name of Jesus. Amen. But in order to make sense of our purpose, right? So, next. All right. So, in order to make sense of our purpose, you may have seen this before. Say there are three kinds of people, right? The first, those who make things happen. The second, those who watch things happen. And the third, those who ask, what happened? When we start from the beginning, in the days of little, we can only achieve God's purpose by consciously choosing to be in the first category. We have to make things happen. Those who sit around and watch things happen and talk quite a lot always find something wrong in what others are doing. And it isn't more important at any point in time than when you are just starting to recognize that those obstacles and those struggles are a prerequisite. They are part and parcel of what we're going to go through. It's a law of the universe. Somebody said pain is life, but you have to choose what type. Is it pain on the road to success, or is it pain of being haunted by regret? When we start small, people will find a fault in everything that you do. And there are those who are still asking. They say something is happening called Brexit. You know, they've been asleep for a while. They don't even know what it's about. So we have to make up our minds to be in the first category. So I thought that we need to examine what success is all about. It is never by accident. It doesn't matter how much we pray or how many tongues we speak in. It is never by accident. It is by following specific principles laid down by God. There's a lady, you may have heard of the story, called Olajumoke in Nigeria. She was a hawker, a bread hawker. And she was going about her business and stumbled over a photo shoot by a known photographer in Nigeria called T.Y. Bello. She snapped, put it on social media, went viral, and all hell broke loose. Agencies and contracts were flying, modeling contracts and all the rest of it. She was on CNN. She couldn't even speak a word of English. But one thing was clear, that on that fateful day, she got up, she got her tray, arranged her bread, placed it on her head, and walked. She moved. And then God favored her. In other words, we have a role to play, however little we may be. So as I said, my own purpose is clear. It is to share my experience. It is to encourage every single person under the sound of my voice to believe in God, believe in themselves, no matter how little their beginnings may appear. So I call it Olajumoke syndrome, because at this point, when you're starting, you need a ton of motivation. But once you start, there are habits that we have to cultivate. It's no rocket science, but it is the habits that are going to keep you going. And I decided to narrow those down into 10 that I want to go through very, very quickly. And if you pause on this and I say it's about perspective. Next point. It says that successful people have a vision. They have a goal. When you start small, without the vision, it's pointless because it means we don't know where we're going. I haven't spoken to the leadership of this church, but I have no doubt that they have a vision for the church. That vision is probably shared by the congregation. Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish. You are not likely to go to a destination without having a kind of picture in your head. It is absolutely critical that we have an idea of what success means for us. It's very personal. My idea of success is different from yours. So somebody might be looking at you thinking, you're not doing well, but nobody has the right to tell you that for yourself. If you're not doing well, you will know. Why? Unless you didn't have a vision. But if you have a vision, define for yourself. Define for your organization. Define for your family. There is absolutely no way you need anybody to tell you how you're doing. No way. And we have to take a look at the previous picture that says, here is a cat. When you look at yourself, what do you see? You see a lion. It doesn't mean that's the present state of affairs. It means that's what you visualize. It means that's where you believe God is taking you. And we can't be afraid when we start small to think and to dream big. Very important. I've often joked that if Jesus came down today to ask some people, what do you want? Some will still sell themselves short. And I have a habit of not selling myself short. If you remember the story in the Bible, John 5, 6 to 7, the lame dude by the pool of Bethesda, been lame for 38 years. He was asked a very simple question: do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be healed? He actually took too long. He went on to explain to Jesus that he's been lame for a long time and there's nobody to take him. Every time the water is there, somebody steps over him and all the rest of it. Too long. Do you want to be healed? Yes, sir. Because oftentimes when we start small, our vision then becomes blurred to the extent that there's too much peripheral mumbo-jumbo that actually distracts us from the purpose. The next thing, number 2, is that they believe in themselves. Stop here. Let's talk about giving. Okay, just leave it there. I'll talk about believing in themselves because you've moved on from the slide. They believe in themselves starts from within. In fact, right, that's the slide I want to see. Great things start from within. And the image to your left says, you may have seen it before, but it's important, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if the egg is broken from an inside force, life begins. In other words, everything starts from within. Your vision starts from within. God is not going to come from heaven to sit by your side. He is going to speak into your mind. And you have to be discerning enough to recognize it. Muhammad Ali said it. He said, I am the greatest. And that I said it even before I knew I was. And that is to say that how we see ourselves is very, very important. Whatever we do right now is not important. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is. We should never lose our dignity. When I clean toilets, I certainly didn't lose my dignity, because if I did, I probably won't be here. And there are, I'm sure we all know this, there are the so-called rich kids when I was growing up. I look back and I wondered why I ever aspired to be like them. It's one of the best parties, and some of us were never going to get invited to such parties. So what we did when I was in university was we would get crashed anyway. We would get crashed the party because we must attend. And then we'll hide so that we're not spotted. And I've been to parties where when they spot you, they stop the DJ from playing and say they need to get some people out. And then you are matched out. You know, the worst case was one night we had it was called Shorts and Mini Party. I had my shorts in and I was bounced with with our shorts out in the middle of the night. But I wonder why I ever aspired to be like them these days. The successful people actually believe in themselves, they appreciate themselves. You've heard of the saying, if you put a gold ring in the nose of a pig, what's it going to do with it? It's going to rub it in the mud. It doesn't appreciate it. I stood in front of somebody many years ago and I said, sir, I need you to invest $100,000 for 10% of my company. He said, what does your company do? I said, this is what we intend to do. He said, where's your office? I said, we don't have an office. Who are your clients? I said, we don't have clients. What products and services do you? I said, we don't yet have. And it's the sort of thing that if you take to the Dragon's Den, one of my favorite shows, they're going to chase you out with a stick. And I said, well, you are investing in me and my team, and one thing is for sure, I will die trying. I'm not saying I want to die, but I will not be alive, sir, when it has failed, or if it fails. I'll be gone. But as long as I'm alive, you better believe it, that by the grace of God, I'm going to put everything there is to put in. And he wrote a check. The rest is history. So great things do start from within. The next slide, please, says that they gave. And when I say give, people misunderstand me. It's not just about money. It's not just about money. Money is important. But I've seen a lot of people, including the kids, giving here this morning. People give their time. They give their effort. They give their energy. They give their talent. They give themselves. And if you're starting little and you have not cultivated the habit of giving, you need to do so. It's the third point. You absolutely need to do so. You see, when they say givers never lack, it's not a cliche. It works. And I'm a little selfish. You know, anything that doesn't work for me, I don't recommend. It's a waste of time. If God doesn't work, I wouldn't recommend. There's no point recommending what doesn't work. But because I know it works, people come to me and say, can you tell us, I have friends that are wanting to go to Nigeria, can you tell us how to? Every time we sit down at Christmas, it's the same question. This Nigeria, how do you people act? You've been asking the same thing for 5 years. It's not going to happen by itself. Do you believe it can happen? If you do, then you got to get up and you got to move. The next thing is that They are educated. Now, I'm not talking about university degrees, because no amount of university qualifications can guarantee you success. No amount. But two things guarantee. It's skill, it's knowledge. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings, he will not stand before obscure men. Proverbs 22:29. The same Bible in Hosea 4:6 says, my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. Knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, is power. A problem is only as good or bad based on the knowledge we have about that problem. And a person has to believe a particular thing exists before they can be knowledgeable about it. If you do not believe God exists, you cannot be knowledgeable about things of God. And that's why if you are an unbeliever, I have no basis to talk to you about the way God works. The first thing is you need to be saved. Only then can we share a common ground. If you don't believe something exists, you cannot be knowledgeable about it. And successful people are skillful, they're knowledgeable. When you start small, it is critical not only to desire, but to pursue knowledge and to pursue skill. Number 5. Before you move on, I say the greatest enemies to acquiring knowledge: laziness, pride, complacency. Some people feel they're too old to be bothered. They've seen it all, they've done it, they've got a t-shirt. Some people are just plainly lazy. The guy's never read a book since he left university 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And he expects to be knowledgeable. How? It's impossible. Because knowledge, nobody was born with knowledge. Everything we know on earth, we acquired. Everything. What you put here is what determines how knowledgeable you are. Next, please. They have an understanding of time. As a beginner, first anniversary, we must have an understanding of time. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making best use of time, because the days are evil. I read a recent report that teens spend on average 9 hours per day on social media. And then many teens then sleep another 9 or 10 hours. And then you find that as people grow, in any given day, there's very little productivity. Why? Somebody asked me, how are you able to do this and combine this? I said, well, unless they have reduced your own day from 24 hours to 16 or 17. Every single one of us has the same 24 hours. So, how do you plan your own time? By God, I still eat well. I don't have problems sleeping. I exercise. I recreate. I go out. I pray. I work hard. And I still have time to watch my favorite TV programs. It's not rocket science. It's about what we put in each of those 24 hours. And if we don't understand the concept of time, that everything is for an appointed time, we run the risk of missing it. My prayer is that none of us will miss our destiny in the name of Jesus. Yeah. Growth is perhaps, of all the 10 points I want to go through, the most significant in the days of little beginnings. Growth. Because anything that is successful has to have grown. Every living thing is expected to grow. Every living thing is designed to grow. The dictionary defines growth as to become. So if we're not growing, we cannot become, which means we cannot succeed. This church will grow. Amen. Everything God has designed that is living was predicated upon growth. But growth cannot occur without nourishment. It's impossible. If you have, I call that preparation, I'm going to come into that in a minute. Fruitfulness comes out of growth. If a planted seed isn't growing, something is wrong somewhere. Not necessarily with the seed. It is either it's planted in the wrong soil, or in many cases, the right seed, right soil, but no nourishment, no tendering, no care. But I assure you that if you start small and you do what's needed after planting the seed, one day that seed becomes a tree that provides a shelter not only for the people who planted it, but for many who were not even there when it was planted. And that would be the testimony of this church. Amen. The plan and are diligent. Please note what the Bible says here in Proverbs 21:5. It says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. The Bible did not say plans lead to abundance. Neither did it say diligence leads to abundance. It says the plans of the diligent, which means you have to have a plan in the days of little. And then you have to be diligent. It becomes an obsession to execute that plan. I am yet to come across a successful person, many mentors, who've read so many books, who did not have plans and who were not diligent. Even the ones we call 419 have plans and diligence, albeit directed in the wrong way. But nobody gets anywhere without having a plan and without being diligent at it. Number 9 is that they are patient. The Bible says in Proverbs 21:5 that everyone who is hasty comes to poverty. Yeah. They are patient. They recognize that the promise of God will be for an appointed time. And in order for you to be patient, you got to understand seasons. The last thing there is that they prepare. Number 10. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Next slide, please. This is a model I've used, that I developed. I'm a lover of animals. So if you come into my office expecting to find CNN playing, no way. I'm a Nat Geo Wild throughout the day. It's in the background. Because I learn more from animals than from CNN. And so I looked at this and I say that in the days of little, we have to have the vision of an eagle. An eagle, to the left of the quadrant, can spot a prey 3 kilometers out, a wingspan of 8 foot. We have to have the speed and the agility of a cheetah, top right. Goes up to 120 kilometers an hour, making it the fastest land animal on earth. We have to have the strength and the determination of a bull, bottom left. The heaviest bull recorded in the UK, I think it was last year or the year before, came in at 1.1 tons, 1,100 kilograms. In pidgin, we call it I no go gree attitude. You have to have that I no go gree attitude. And the bottom right says the patience of a vulture. Oftentimes vultures are painted in the wrong way. I'm not talking about profiting from other people's sweat. No, I'm saying that the virtues of a vulture that recognizes that its own time will come. That's what I like about it. And when you combine that, I don't have a copyright for it, it's just something I knocked together. When you combine that, I feel that you are utilizing the ingredients that God Himself has put on earth for us to be successful. I am not sure if... Go on, next. So I mentioned earlier on that in order for us to then be patient, we need to understand that a season, as defined by the dictionary, is a suitable or proper or fitting time when something is best or available. Which is why nobody is surprised right now that it's cold. It is the best time for it to be cold. While the earth remains, seed time, harvest time, cold and heat, and summer and winter, day and night shall not what? Shall not cease. The Bible is wonderful because, you know, it's just, it brings everything together in a way that sounds like a cliche, but it really does. There is nothing you're looking for. All the principles that God has laid down for us to become successful are there. We just need to apply them. Matter of fact, if we don't go to school at all and have no university education, and all we do is read the Bible and apply, we're going to get there. Now, I'm not sure if my video can play. Can it play? It's a 2-minute video. Can it?
Just load it.
The video is a 2-minute video about the Chinese bamboo tree, which you may have heard about. And it talks about a farmer in China that sort of planted the bamboo tree and spent ages watering and nothing happened. Year 1, nothing happened. Year 2, nothing happened. Year 3, nothing happened. Year 4, nothing happened. Nearly gave up. And people thought he was crazy because he went to the same spot, watering and tending where he planted the seed. And in year 5, there was a lot of noise. And the shoots sprang up. And in case you didn't know, from that point onwards, 6 weeks it takes a bamboo tree to get to 90 feet. So somebody asked, how long did it take the bamboo tree to grow? He said 6 weeks. No, sir. It's 5 years and 6 weeks. Because the first 5 years were just preparation. A lot was happening underneath the soil that was not visible. A lot will happen in this church that will not be visible initially. But when it springs forth, people will say, oh, they were lucky. It's not just luck. It's preparation. Next slide, please. Because that is then the heart of my discussion, is the power of preparation. Because it appears to me that there are still many people who are either ill-prepared or not at all prepared for the kind of success they imagine that they want. So we have a lot of disappointed people, primarily because they have not really been prepared for what they want. You cannot achieve real sustainable success in anything without thorough preparation. I don't care what it is. This gathering is a successful gathering. I've been impressed with what I've seen. But I guarantee you, in case I'm not in any doubt that you prepared for this. It doesn't matter what you're up to. If we do not prepare thoroughly, it is absolutely impossible for us to achieve real success. Robert Schuller was an American televangelist, and he said that spectacular achievements is always preceded by unspectacular preparations. So in years to come, when this church has spectacular achievements, all of the unspectacular preparations will not be seen by people. But it doesn't matter. Because as long as you are prepared for the success that is coming, guess what? You will get there. It takes 10,000 hours, research shows, to become an expert at anything. Hans Erickson is a professor at the University of Colorado. He wrote a paper called "The Role of Deliberate Practice in the Acquisition of Expert Performance." And the person that reminds me, I'm a Man United supporter, the person that comes to mind the most is David Beckham. Because David Beckham was not just a natural talent. No. David Beckham epitomized deliberate practice in the acquisition of expert performance when it came to free kicks. He stayed extra hours. After training, he practiced his free kicks. Nobody saw that. But when the matches come, and there's a dead ball, everybody leaves it for him because he's made it his own. The question is, what is it in our lives that we are making our own and that we are preparing resolutely for? And I broke this down. I said that if you spend 10 hours a week, it's going to take you 19 years to become an expert. Yet many people don't even spend up to that. Now, the bulk of our life is spent working. I say 25 to 65 on average. That's 40 years. We spend working. Yet many retire not being an expert at anything. Because they're not spending anything near 10 hours a week, 2 hours a day on the subject that they call themselves an expert at. And only in the dictionary do you have achievement and success before work, because it's written alphabetically. In real world, work comes before achievement, and it comes before success. And there's no other formula to that. In Nigeria, I've seen a lot of, excuse me to be sexist for a minute, but I've seen a lot of women. You know, the beauty industry is booming. The fashion industry, the makeup industry, the hair industry is booming. I've seen all sorts of enhancements. All kinds of nails, makeup, extensions, perfumes that smell funny, eyelashes, eyebrows, and I even hear there are bums that people attach. I haven't seen them, you know. I believe they exist. But the point there is that sadly, I think men generally are not initially attracted to who a woman is or what she looks like before they even get a chance to know the woman. And I've always said that women are far smarter than guys, so what they've done is decided to go the enhancement route. And I call it preparation. And guess what? It works. So we prepare for the kind of success that we imagine, that we want. And I've seen the results on both sides. I don't stand here telling you that I've always been a good preparer. Far from it. I was a minimalist. Primary, secondary, university, I was a minimalist. Whilst I wasn't born a genius, I was okay, a good average student. But I partied a lot, and you know, I didn't do what I should have done, and I graduated, and I felt that I underachieved. I wasn't happy. And the reason I felt I underachieved is that I knew deep down that if I prepared better, I would have achieved better. And so, years later, I decided that preparation was going to be my thing. I can't be all things to all men. but I want to become a preparer. So I applied it. And everywhere I've worked, the more I prepare, the more they think I'm bright. And I'm like, wow, this works. I'm an ordinary guy, but I'm only the guy that prepares better than you. Bingo. And that's why I make no apology when I say to anybody that I don't care how intelligent you are, I don't care what your IQ level is. If I can out-prepare you, I will outperform you every day of the year. Preparation is critical if we want to be at the top of our game. When we start little, we must prepare, we must practice, we must put in the hours, no matter how much it takes. There is a saying that my mom used to say when we were young in Yoruba, and it goes something like, what you are going to, rephrase, what you are not going to accept as a wealthy man, you reject it when you're poor. It's not when you become wealthy that you learn the habits of discipline. Next, please, and we round up. We have debates about this, and we say restraint, audacity, or stupidity. This is a slide, a photo from the final phase of training to U.S. Police Department K9 Division. And you can see a bunch of Alsatians eyeing the cat. Are they stupid not to attack? Are they just merely exercising restraint? And we see the cat walking majestically, not caring what could happen to it. I can see some dogs, kind of, one or two of them looking like, if only. I feel like that sometimes, if only. It's not your fault. It's because I'm a Christian. Otherwise, you met me when I was not born again. And we've had debates, and some people agree that it is restraint, some people say it is stupid of the cat, but what we miss is the preceding slide. What you see on the slide is all about one thing: preparation. The cats and the dogs were prepared because it is critical that a handler must be able to control his dog. In the days of little beginnings, there will be times when we absolutely have to be audacious. No matter what anybody says, you got to just be bold enough and get out there. And there will be times when we have to exercise restraint. They're going to push us to the wall. But there is no room for stupidity. And that we're exercising restraint does not mean we're stupid. It's just wisdom. Just roll down. The 5 P's I studied, business school was all about marketing. In the practical world is proper preparation prevents poor performance. I've got 2 boys, and when they were little, the first thing I taught them was 5 P's. So if I die and you don't learn anything from me, you got to remember the 5 P's. It's not about brilliance, it's not about IQ. It's about proper preparation for anything you do. When you start and you're prepared, God has guaranteed that your effort will be rewarded with success. A few parting words. Now, to the right is how the road often looks and feels when you start out. If it's a straight line, everybody would get there. It'll be easy. In fact, it will be predictable. It is never a straight line. Half the time you cannot see beyond this point. It's curvy and winding, oftentimes through mountains, ascents and descents. We must be prepared as we move through the journey that the road to our success is never going to be a straight line. Next one says that life is not always perfect. There's always going to be problems, and you can see this, the pencil snapped in two. When I was in primary school, I actually orchestrated it. So if I didn't have a pencil, and I ask you, and you say you didn't have one, I'll say, can I break yours in two? And we sharpen both ends, and then I have something to write with. But because it's yours, you keep the part with the eraser. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wrap up, there is no elevator to success. You got to get used to it. You got to thrive on climbing stairs. I want you to prepare yourself for that. Guess what? The sky is the limit. If we want to not live a life of mediocrity, we want to become an achiever, we want to move from obscurity to prominence, we've got to start climbing the stairs. Again, the stairs will not be a straight stair. It's usually spiral. Well, we're going to skip the last video because we can't play it, but it's all right. We'll play it another time. Maybe I'll share with you. The next slide, I think I have 2 more slides. It's the 3-dimensional faith. Faith in God comes first. And we get on, I fly a lot, so every time I get on a plane, there's a part of me that says, maybe this is it. I hope I land. When you fly often, it's always somewhere there. Because the people to whom it happened, I'm no better than them. So I don't know when. But the thing is that when I get on a plane, I never think about the expertise of the pilot. I take it for granted that the guy is skilled. I don't say, please, can I see the pilot's credentials before I fly? No. They're going to chop me out. So I take it for granted. Yet in the things of God, we question whether God is even qualified to help us. Why? Why do we think that we have to create a headache? And God's in heaven, on the equivalent of WhatsApp, typing SMH. I'm thinking, get on with it. Bless the work of my hands, and God's looking at people's hands and is saying, okay, put work there so I can bless it. So the 3-dimensional faith, the faith in God, is critical. Faith in ourselves and faith in the environment, in the system with which we operate, in the church that we're in. When we have those 3-dimensional faith, what happens is that in a church, an organization, or a gathering that's starting small, we ignore naysayers. We're so focused on the vision, so focused on the faith that we have in God, the faith that we have in ourselves, and the faith that we have in the purpose for which that organization was set up. My final word, ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah 66:9. Shall I bring to the point of birth and then not cause to bring forth? Question mark. It's a rhetorical question. God was not expecting anybody to answer that. It says, no, I would never keep this nation from being born. And I want to indulge you to alter the Bible a little bit and substitute this church. You've got it here. Citadel of Praise. I like the name. I would never keep Citadel of Praise from being born, says your God. Amen. Thank you, and God bless you.